Mike, hopefully you're hearing this. We need your review on the new Superman film right now.
Meanwhile, at the Hall of Justice.
Hello there.
Well, welcome to the Superman review and retrospective. I'm Mike, and we're going to be talking about all kinds of fun stuff. Let's get to it. Superman, the Man of Steel, the Man of Tomorrow. Well, when was he created? Nobody really knows. Actually, I just didn't look it up. But I've been a Superman fan for a long time. Enough with all the jokes. Let's get down to business here. So, Superman is a man from another planet that came to Earth, and he uses his fantastical powers to help mankind. Now everybody knows that. Why am I saying that? Well, because I think it's very important, because he's essentially one of the, if not the first superhero, as far as his whole thing is, I have superpowers. Now, that's not enough to stand out against the crowd. And because of that, a lot of times Superman can come across as dated or old-fashioned, corny, but that's Superman. Superman is the person that we all want to be, and he is the person that everyone should aspire to be, a kind person that helps someone no matter what, out of the kindness of his heart, because that's what he thinks is right, and that's what he knows he needs to do. So my journey with Superman all started, when I was pretty young. I remember seeing the George Reeves version on Nick at Night, which Nick at Night, for people that they're not aware, Nickelodeon, I'm sure you've heard of that, or what's left of it, used to have a version after dark that would show old shows, black and white shows essentially. And one of the shows that I remember watching or seeing was Superman. And I kind of realize that things are kind of blown out here, so let's switch to this. Is this even any better? Let's try it one more time. There we go. Okay, so George Reeves, Nick at Night. One of the episodes that really I remember is, don't remember the title of it. I'm sure I can either put it up here or, whatever. So one of the things that I remember is there was an episode, there was a criminal boss or something like that, that he had committed a crime. They had statute of limitations and was about to run out. They couldn't find him. And he was hiding in this safe for 20 or so years. And Superman finds him and is able to get him out of the safe and take him to jail before, or I guess have him arrested before he was able to get away with the crime. I don't remember what the crime was, but that always kind of stood out to me. That, interesting premise. And fast forward to Christopher Reeve as Superman, the Superman that I think a lot of people remember, coming on to the silver screen, larger than life, and presenting, I think, one of the things that sticks with Superman to this day, regardless, the John Williams theme. And this is John Williams. I think a lot of people, even if you don't know who John Williams is, you've heard of his themes, Star Wars, Indiana Jones. There's a ton more. Just for brevity, if I went through everything here, we'd be going on for a long time. But safe to say, he is a master at making you hear something and instantly associating it with a brand or a character or movie, and that's what he did with Superman. So Christopher Reeve's take, or Reeve, was the first time I really remember being like, "Whoa, this is out of control. This is something interesting." I liked the character, and I liked the movie, and the second one was great, but definitely after that it kind of fell off. But I do remember especially the first movie. Now fast forward once again, at least for me, to some TV iterations. Once again, because they've only had a couple of actual movie iterations of Superman with Dean Cain, and I think it was The Adventures of Lois and Clark. I remember that show being, I would watch it every once in a while, but it was also kind of like, it was TV, low budget. It was kind of reminded me a lot of like Hercules or like Xena Warrior Princess. It was okay. Not to say that like it's like those because those shows are bad. I'm saying it because it had that same kind of budget feeling to it. You knew that the action for Lois and Clark that I remember wasn't going to be like the highlight of the show because they didn't have, the budget and everything, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, definitely for Superman, I think that works pretty well. To have more, you have to humanize him. And around that time was the animated adventures of Superman, which is where I really got into the character. This is the Bruce Timm stuff that we've talked about on this channel before, with the Batman animated series, Justice League Unlimited, Superman, a bunch of those when they were running roughshod on the animated sphere and pop culture consciousness. It was definitely one of those things that I remember, and one of the reasons why I still like the character. It was, I think, the first time that I really was like, I like Superman. Like, I like this character because they humanize him. They make him more. The stories too are more complex. With that, I'm sure it's hard for me to talk more about it without, I guess, ruining too much. But I remember definitely, especially when you get into Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, they start making Superman more of a character that, not like not like a dark and gritty character, but a character that isn't always like, he's at this point, he's been around for a while, so he kind of understands, like, Lex Luthor's always out to, he's got some scheme and stuff. So I think probably Batman also is rubbing off on you on that. Hey, this is Mike from later on. Wanted to make sure that I added this part in. Smallville. So I didn't talk about Smallville. I don't know how it slipped my mind, but going off the cuff of my mind, don't always remember everything. But big shout out to Tom Welling as Superman, Clark. The dog's barking. A shout out to Michael Rosenbaum as awesome Lex Luthor, and John Glover, who's been on this podcast before, as Lionel Luthor, Lex's dad. A bunch of awesome other characters in the show as well. I remember I didn't really watch it when it was on, but I watched it later on, and both Michael Rosenbaum and John Glover have been incorporated into a bunch of DC programs, like movies and stuff like that. Like John Glover was in Shazam, and Michael Rosenbaum actually did some voices in the newest James Gunn Superman, which we will talk about coming up just later on in this show here that we're doing. So back to wherever I edit this in. Somebody save me. So then we've got Man of Steel with Henry Cavill, which great look for Superman as far as like, Henry Cavill looked the part. I don't want to say too many bad things about any version of it. Safe to say it wasn't my favorite. I'm not a huge fan of like Superman being like super. I don't know, Superman being super. Him being edgy. You can do that. You can do that. You know, there's been like Injustice. There's been Elseworlds Tales, or you know the I forget what it was called, but like versions of Superman where he has a bad day, like Lois Lane and his son are killed, and that turns him not necessarily evil at first, but being like, okay, we need to crack down on crime so this doesn't happen to someone again. Um, and because of that, he ends up becoming a Justice Lord um, from the Justice League. The actual they had a movie of that and Injustice. I think it works fine if you're looking for an alternate version of Superman, but you can't have the main version of your Superman be like that. Because if you have Superman be like, he's so powerful, if you have him be like, I don't know, like scary, or if you have him be like non-caring, it becomes like, I don't know, it kind of becomes like a horror film. It's like, you know, like almost Brightburn, which is, that's fine, but it's not Superman. So, oh, I forgot Brandon Routh, that was an interesting one because I like him. That movie wasn't bad, but it did the thing where they were like, "Hey, let's pretend like anything after Superman 2 didn't exist." And by and large, I don't think that really ever works. I mean, they did it with Halloween like a couple times, and it's just like, yeah, we all know that those other movies weren't the greatest, but it's already kind of a hard pill to swallow to be like, hey, you gotta come with us on this journey 100 more times here. Um, Great actor though. I thought he was good in it, and yeah. Now, gonna talk about. Give me 1 second here. It's Superman and Lois, the TV show, the CW series. That was really good. Um, oh man, I really wish I could remember the guy's name that plays Superman because he definitely my favorite on screen TV version of Superman. There's a scene where he's being interviewed early in his career by Lois Lane, and she says, you know, asking him all these questions. She asks him, you know, is there anything you can't do? You know, all this stuff, and essentially it's like, did you learn, you know, when you're studying humanity, pretty much he divulges that he's learned, you know, languages to kind of, he's interested in the culture. And she asks like how many languages, and he just says all of them because Superman is a character for the world, not just for, you know, a certain he doesn't represent like a certain spot in the world. You know, obviously it was like truth, justice, the American way during like World War II to kind of like bolster everybody's confidence and stuff, which I understand. But he represents truth and justice regardless of what, you know, a place believes, and that trumps all. So I think his name's like Tyler. I'll put it up on the thing here. A plus, great job. There's been plenty of like movies, and like I said, the Justice League. I wish I could remember all the people's. Like the one guy was in, I think, Wings, the TV show that played Superman. One of them. Yeah, but needless to say, I'm a huge fan of Superman. So what did I think of the new Superman that just came out from James Gunn? Now, James Gunn, you know, known for many things, obviously. Slither, he did, obviously, Guardians of the Galaxy, I feel like was his big, like, holy crap, you know, like, this guy knows what he's doing. And that was with Marvel. Then he jumped over and did The Suicide Squad, which by and large I think a lot of people liked. Regardless of how you feel about those characters, it was handled, you know, pretty good, especially after the previous iteration of Suicide Squad that was kind of a hot mess around the, you know, Batman vs Superman, Justice League, Zack Snyder kind of debacle with all that stuff. And let's see, then he did all the Guardians films, like I said, that Peacemaker, which, whether you like it or not, it definitely took those characters and made them go into the what's it called, pop culture and stuff. And now we have Superman. So does James Gunn do Superman justice? Because that's one thing you can say about him, is he does a really good job of taking obscure characters. So like the Polka Dot Man, that people are like, he's like, I want to find the stupidest character I can find and actually give him like a character. They've got Guy Gardner in here, which I think a lot of people say is like the worst Green Lantern. Essentially, he's kind of like a jerk and he's full of himself because he has powers and everything. There's just that kind of stuff. But this is one of the big three for DC, the big three being Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. Now, you would think, like, does he, because I don't think he's ever had a character this big, that I can think of. And I would, going into this, I wasn't 100% sure, like, how it was going to be, because I do like James Gunn. I like his films. I'm not a fan of, like, everything, that he's, like, every single part of everything that he's done. But there's very few I don't think there's a single filmmaker. Like, I love John Carpenter, but I don't love every single one of his films. Like, I like them, but like certain films, I'm like, that just wasn't it for me. So yeah, going into this, I was thinking the actors, they understand the characters though, from watching interviews and stuff. So does he get Superman? And the answer, for me at least, is yes, he does. And the movie shows it. And I without any exaggeration, I think that this is the best Superman film that's ever been put out. There's only been like really a couple. There's the Christopher Reeve, there's Brandon Routh, and there's Henry Cavill. Those are on-screen Supermans on the big screen, like movie. And I think there was a George Reeves one, or way back in the day. But it's kind of crazy to think that a character that's been around for this long has only had that many iterations. You look at James Bond, and hasn't been around nearly as long, and he's had a ton of different people play him. And I think the reason for that is mainly because, of being afraid to screw something up that's this important to a studio. Oh my God, give me 1 second. So the newest Superman, James Gunn, as we were just talking about, the noises are still going on, but I'm sure you guys don't mind. I had to bring up the IMDb here. Most of this I'm trying to go is, off the top of my head, just to kind of make this as informal as possible. I don't have any notes written down or anything. I just saw the movie recently. So I really like this movie. In fact, I dare to say I love it. And so we have David Corenswet as Superman and Clark Kent, but don't tell Lex. And speaking of Lex, we have he's been in a bunch of stuff on this channel that we've watched. Juror Number 2, Renfield, and many others. It's Nicholas Hoult as Alexander Luthor. Lois Lane is portrayed by maybe I should have been a little bit more prepared. Oops. Sorry about that. Rachel Brosnahan, Lois Lane. These three are fantastic. I think everybody in this film is great. With the character they're playing. From Ma and Pa Kent to So the picture for Ma Kent is like some random. Okay, it updated. It was some like random dude. So, um, maybe I'll cut that part out. Pa Kent, Perry White, Jimmy Olsen. Um, so there's a couple characters in here that I think a lot of people are probably like, if they're not DC fans or they're not like Superman fans, we're probably like, who the hell are these people? Not really the Green Lantern. I mean, maybe that specific version. I mean, some people probably think. I mean, a lot of people probably, if they're not DC fans, think that. A lot of people probably think that, you know, if they're not DC fans, that all Green Lanterns, or not all Green Lanterns, but that there's really just Green Lantern. When there's like 3 or 4, I think, from Earth alone, and that's all over the galaxy, and that's just the Green Lanterns. There's the Yellow Lanterns, founded by Sinestro, a former Green Lantern. But you've got Guy Gardner, which is in this film, played by Nathan Fillion, perfectly, expertly, if you will. And John Stewart, the Green Lantern that I remember specifically because he was in the Justice League, and Hal Jordan, which is the one that a lot of people remember because he's like kind of like the OG. Well, actually, there's one I think before him too, but I can't remember his name. And I'm trying to think if there's really. And there's also like small nods here, like Otis was one of the techs that helps Lex in this film. So without going into too many spoilers here, yeah, I really liked it. I thought that that they really got the characters, and it was nice. So the biggest thing for me was that like Superman come across as a caring person. So that, and mainly that, I mean, I understand people are like, I like Man of Steel, he's like a badass and everything, but when you have a character like Superman, and it's the first film especially, if he shows up, he sets the tone for the rest of the on-screen kind of universe and stuff. I mean, I guess there was the Suicide Squad, but at that time, I don't think a lot of people, I don't even know if that's even part of the James Gunn, like, you know, his thing he's going to do here, even though he made it. But you have to have Superman be the baseline. And if the baseline is he doesn't really care about humanity and he really only cares about Lois Lane, then you really have nowhere to go with like other characters. So like Batman is kind of like the loner, but if Superman's the loner, like, not, you know what I'm saying? Like, not everybody can be the loner, not everybody can be like the funny character, not everybody can be the straight man. You have to have characters to play off each other, and Superman is the wholesome character that he should be in this film. Now, some of the other characters we have, Hawkgirl. It's not the one that I remember from Justice League. It's not Shira Themyscira from Another Planet, but she's great in this. There is Mr. Terrific, not Mr. Fantastic. Mr. Terrific is a super smart character. He was in Justice League Unlimited. He ran the Watchtower, and the Watchtower is this big space. It's like a big space station that's up in space. Okay, no shit. It's a big space station that Batman essentially funds because Batman has like more money than anyone in the entire world, pretty much. And he, you know, that's where they kind of monitor situations on Earth and in space, is the Watchtower. And in the Justice League, Martian Manhunter mans it, but in Justice League Unlimited, it's pretty much like Mr. Terrific takes over because he's like the smartest guy pretty much, and he has all these robots, and you know, he's just awesome. Actually, he's terrific, and he's awesome in this too. He gets his shine on in this as far as like a scene. It's really cool. Same thing with Guy Gardner, Hawkgirl. It's nice too. I really liked, I guess we'll get into spoilers here, but I liked that to see Superman interacting with other characters. It was like an episode of Justice League cartoon, which is pretty much all I ever wanted for Superman and the DC stuff, is all this stuff to be interconnected, like off the bat, because we've seen solo movies a bunch. I feel like these need to be like, you know, each one of these needs to be like an episode of the show. Maybe focus more on one character than another, like a Batman movie, more focused. But, you know, it would be nice to see that. And they have Metamorpho in here, which is really cool to see him on screen. He's been in Justice League and in the cartoons before as well. Yeah, I mean, just in general, I guess some of the spoilers here, we'll get into it. Starts off, Superman he gets his ass beat, and essentially it's his comeback from that almost the whole movie, because Lex Luthor, even though they haven't met in person, has been plotting for years, ever since Superman showed up and announced himself to the world like 3 years. Not showed up, but, you know, was like, hey, I'm here, I'm Superman. And said, yeah, he's like, I'm an alien from another world of Krypton, that kind of thing. For 3 years, he's been plotting to take down Superman. And he finally puts his plan into action with Ultraman and the Engineer, some villain characters, and he turns the people against Superman. And it's like all these things just keep getting piled on top of Superman, on top of, like, he has a message from his parents that are like, you know, we sent you to Earth to be a protector, or to, you know, essentially he's like, it's messed up. So he's like, okay, they must think I was sent here to be a protector and help people. And then they unscramble the message. Lex Luthor does when he breaks into the Fortress of Solitude, and is essentially like, shows it to everybody on Earth, like, he was actually sent here to rule over, you know, the Earth. And it's pretty much shown that, like, the message isn't fake. So in this version, his parents sent him to Earth to essentially be like a bastard, or, well, not a bastard, but like a bad guy. I guess I mean, people won't ever think they're the bad guy when they're the bad guy, but, you know, it's like, you know, take as many wives to repopulate, and you're our last hope, and that kind of thing. So it's some pretty demoralizing stuff, because he always thought that, you know, he has great human parents, but he always thought that he was sent here for a purpose. But at some point, his actual dad, you know, on Earth is like, it doesn't matter. You know, it says more about you that you saw that message and didn't know the whole message and thought that you were supposed to be here to save humanity and be a good person, than it does about them. You know, who cares what, you know, essentially it was like, parents are here to raise you and let you make a fool of yourself. You know, they don't have any bearing on what you decide to do with your life. And I think that's a great message to send. And it's just like, the whole movie was just very nice, and bad things do happen in this film. But it's very positive overall, I guess is what I'm trying to say. People get their comeuppance in the end. And I think it's a great way to start off this new gods and monsters, you know, mandate of the new DC that James Gunn wants to do. You know, I really didn't have any complaints about it. There's some stuff in there about political, you know, stuff here or there. Obviously pointed to stuff today with Palestine and all that kind of stuff, and Israel. It's not the same thing. But it's like, obviously, like an allegory and stuff. But, like, there's all kinds of stuff going on in the movie. If you like Superman, I'd say go see it. I mean, you have to see it if you're a Superman fan. If you like Superman, kinda, there are people there that I went there with that I don't think they're the biggest Superman fan. They didn't really know anybody except for Lois Lane and Superman, and Lex Luthor, and a lot of people were there and they said they really liked it or they loved it. So I think the only people that might not like it are people that were a huge fan of the Henry Cavill, like, brooding Superman, because this is Superman the way that I feel like he's meant to be, for truth, justice, and just, you know, the way of the warrior. No, the way of just treating everybody with respect, kindness, and, you know, how you'd want to be treated. So, with that, I don't really have much more to say. I don't know if there's anything else to say other than I didn't know how much I was going to talk about it. There's a lot of stuff I didn't talk about, but at the same time, I don't want to spoil everything in the film. I think that you guys should go out and see the film, and especially if you're a big fan of the animated series, it's like an episode brought to life, or on the big screen. And big praise, shout out to everybody in this film, everybody that worked on it. I mean, they definitely, you can feel the love for Superman on screen and for these characters. You know, Green Lantern, Hawkgirl, Mr. Terrific, Lois Lane, Lex Luthor. Yeah, just shout out to everybody in the film. And, well, actually, let's see. Maybe we need to switch this. Give me 1 second here. Yep, everybody, thanks for watching. This has been Mike. We'll see you at the movies. And if you have any comments, definitely leave them down below. And if you wouldn't mind, and you like this video, subscribe, like, and what was that other thing? You know what? I'm going to go think about it in the Fortress of Solitude. Bye. Oh, also, leave some comments about what the next video should be. Until next time. Bye. Now this is the part where I walk back. And for anybody watching still, thanks. Seriously. This has been kind of fun doing these little essays and reviews. So I'm going to keep it up. Probably going to keep doing them every 2 weeks unless I'm able to get one out, on a week and I have like an idea. So until next time, bye. Again.